Let's take a look at some charts on Cardano from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So ADA is set to release a mainnet after several years in development, and right now they've released a Shelley incentivized testnet, similar to what ETH Phase 0 is going to look like, I believe. So right now Cardano controls the nodes for all the transactions. They continue to do so. Even with this test net, it is alone on an island in that it has no bearing on consensus of transactions on the network. The staking rewards will not be delivered until after the mainnet release. So from this respect, to me, in my opinion, the network remains centralized, the testnet is centralized, the whole umbrella is 2 or 3 entities control all the nodes for the network, which is fine. That's not the issue. But don't come out here and tell people this is decentralized, this is a decentralized blockchain, blah, blah, blah. It's not. Until the mainnet release, it's not decentralized. You can see right now there's 12.8 billion tokens staking out of the 28 to 37 billion. Now I think the circulating supply is going to keep price for ADA down considerably, regardless of dollar value. If there's billions of something and price goes up, some whale is going to sell it down. If price keeps going up, more and more people are going to sell it down. So I think in the near term, fundamentals for ADA after the mainnet release suggest that there's going to be this massive unlocking of supply, and that's my adjective, but there's going to be a supply increase with the staking rewards. If it were you, would you sell those? Would you hold those? I don't know. That's for you to consider. Let's take a look at transactions per day and average transaction values. Now, transactions per day have not exceeded the initial distribution periods. Average transaction values haven't exceeded any distribution period prior to 2018. So there's no higher high in transactions per day. There's no higher high in average transaction values. Now, as transactions per day increase, you expect average transaction values to decrease if it's a chain that incentivizes dApps or smart contracts. There's going to be a lot of little transactions. And to me, any of this data is kind of meaningless until the mainnet release, because that's when we'll actually see what the blockchain is made of, and we'll see how decentralized it is. If they pull the Neo, where they control 5 of the 6 nodes, and they say it's decentralized, that's going to be a problem. From an honesty perspective, I suspect they will be successful in their proof of stake mainnet release, but I also suspect there are going to be some bugs leading up to the mainnet release or shortly after the mainnet release. Nothing catastrophic, but I think there are going to be some issues just because it's not decentralized yet. It's a transition period. Looking at NVT and daily active addresses in the fill here. Sorry, monthly active addresses in the fill. Again, monthly active addresses have never exceeded the initial distribution periods, so there really hasn't been any massive excitement for the coin other than initial periods where everything was at an all-time high and mid-2019 when everything increased in value significantly. So daily active address is definitely increasing since the beginning of the year, where it hit almost a new yearly low. So the testnet brought lifeblood from that perspective. NVT is pretty much in the lower half of historic values, but again, I don't know how to really evaluate this until the mainnet is live and there's actually some decentralized things going on in dApps, smart contracts, that sort of thing. Then we can begin to compare it to things like EOS and ETH, Neo, OMG, yada, 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 XYZ coin that all does the same stuff, proof of stake, dApps, that sort of thing. Looking at Google Trends, it's basically been flat, since all-time high in price. No real surprise there. There hasn't really been anything super exciting going on. Mid-2019, it popped up a little bit. End of 2019, beginning of 2020, it's barely up, but in general, it's all just a blip compared to what it was during price all-time high. If we look at some technicals, we have yearly pivots, VPVR, 50, 200 volume, and RS high. So the 50 and the 200 have been basically bearishly crossed most of Cardano's life. Price has been below the 50 for most of Cardano's life. You can see just recently it's popping above The 50 and the 200. The 50 and the 200 are crossing bullish again. It's above the VPVR high volume node resistance level, which should now be support. So there's tons of support around 0.45, resistance at 0.55, resistance at a penny, the psychological level, horizontal resistance at the yearly pivot, previous local high. So there's tons of resistance on the way up at a penny, but if it can get past the penny, it doesn't have a lot of upside resistance historically. Volume, nothing really to really talk about. This is Binance, so I honestly don't know how truthful this volume is, if it's washed or, Binance doesn't have the best record with this sort of thing. This volume looks very vibrant for ADA, so I hesitate to think it's entirely honest here, but something to consider when looking at various exchanges, especially for alts, which are generally historically super illiquid. And RSI is just chilling sort of at highs at overbought territory. Cloud looks good from a trend perspective. It's above the cloud. Cloud should cross Kumo twist bullish. If it hasn't already, it will. And these TK lines will pull up. So it needs some time, I think, before it makes any massive moves. It's really all about the mainnet release. FOMO around that, buy the rumor, sell the news, that sort of thing. But trend lines, it looks good. It's above the 200. It's above the cloud. Very similar on the ADA BTC chart. Above the 200, above the cloud. Cloud metrics are bullish. You can see there's a massive gap here between where price is now and the next yearly pivot up, which is around 950 sats. So a pretty decent trade setup there. Long from current price, target 950, stop loss below 400 or something, below 450, whatever this low is. So over the next 6 months, 7 months, worth a watch, worth a trade. No real massive setup here from the long side one way or the other. But that high circulating supply burden is an issue, especially from people who have been holding. If you're holding tokens from above 1,000 sats, let's say, and you've got 500,000, and it gets anywhere near 1,000 sats, most likely you're going to sell. If it were me, that's what I would do. So you're going to have this massive supply, which is one of the reasons why I always talk about VPVR. If there was a bunch of interest up here and it breaks through that support, then it becomes resistance on the way up. Same thing down here. There was a ton of buying resistance up down here. It should act as support. So if it gets anywhere near 1,000 again, I don't expect it to just shoot through that resistance.